What's up, Kansas City? I'm your host, Glenn Bryan Frizzell. Today we are taping in the historic 18th and Vine Jazz District at the Lincoln Building, home of Cascade Media Group. Did you not know that on average, a person with a less than high school education makes less than $15,000 than a person with some college or advanced degree training? And at-risk youth is a youth defined either officially or unofficially as a youth who is in danger of academic failure. Today's special guest is Mr. Tyrone Flowers, Executive Director of Higher M Pact, an organization designed to address some of the needs, employment and educational needs of a good group of children here in the Kansas City area.
Actually, I'm the founder and president. Renee's the Executive Director.
I do stand corrected, Mr.
No
Flowers.
problem.
We're glad that we could get you here with us today. In Genesis, Mr. Flowers, Cain simply asks the question, am I my brother's keeper? The Lord replies, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out from the ground. Mr. Flowers, what do we need to know about addressing the needs of high-risk minority youth in Kansas City, Missouri?
Well, the most important thing is we need to recognize that they're out there. And we need to also clearly identify high-risk urban youth from just kids that are at risk. Because sometimes I think people get it confused just because you see some minority youth who may be going through some challenges, who may be on a socioeconomic level, lower level, that they are high risk. But you have a population that are out there that's high risk. And the way we try to separate high risk from at risk, every kid, like you said, is at risk, can be at risk of failing school or getting involved in certain negative activities. But then you have a population that may have already dropped out of school or already involved in maybe drugs, gangs, or other activities that they should not be involved in, and they've embraced it as a means of survival. So it's a part of their lifestyle. And so once you identify that population, one of the things we have to do is we got to engage with them. So often we write those individuals off, or we are intimidated, or we are afraid of them. In all actuality, they're looking for adults to engage them and give them the resources that they need so they can be successful and achieve their dreams.
Now, Mr. Flowers, how is Higher Impact different than Big Brothers or Big Sisters or any other organization?
Well, the key things is, again, we go after the high-risk kids versus the at-risk kids. Because most programs, again, when you go after high-risk kids, I mean, within the word high risk, a lot of times they mess up your numbers. These are the kids that may not show up for the program for a whole array of reasons. But one of the things that separate Higher Impact from a lot of other programs, we're there with these kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whatever need that they may have, we're there. It's part of like a family in the serious sense. Also, if a kid moves out of a particular area of Kansas City, let's say the kid's living down north and he moves out south, we follow that kid wherever he goes. So it's not like he's moving out of a good relationship. And especially these are the kids we're in our leadership program. Also, most programs are available between 8 and 5 in a structured environment. Higher Impact is available to these kids, like I said, 24 hours a day in a non-structured environment. Sometimes we get calls, it's at 12 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock at night, and sometimes it's in areas that are not the most safest places in town. But if that's where our kids are and that's where the need is, we have to address it. And another thing with Higher Impact, it's a long-term mentoring program. We work with the kids 1 to 10 years because we know that the situation that our kids are in, it didn't take them 6 weeks or a year to get into those situations. It took years. And so we work with them 1 to 10 years. And the other thing is, we focus on adolescents. I know all the statistics tell you prevention is the way, and I agree that if you can prevent them from getting in this situation, that's the best case. But you have a group of kids that, for whatever reasons, they didn't fall through the cracks, and who's going to go after those kids? So we want them through middle school, through high school, and it takes a while to build that relationship of trust. Sometimes it takes our kids anywhere from 1 to 2, 3 years before they trust us with helping them make those right decisions in the process for them to achieve their goals and being successful.
Well, thank you, Mr. Flowers, for explaining that difference to me. Not too long ago, Bill Cosby came to my high school. He was talking to the children. He said that we have a lot of kids who have dreams of becoming professional sports players, professional entertainers, whether it be rappers or musicians, actors. And what were your dreams growing up here in Kansas City? Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah. Well, my dream as a kid was pretty much everything I saw on TV. If I saw a police officer in a particular show, I wanted to be a police officer. If I saw a fireman, I wanted to be a fireman.
I still have those dreams.
Exactly. You know, when I saw Starsky and Hutch, that's dating me, but I wanted to be a detective. So, you know, I was one of those kids that was very adventurous, had a strong imagination. So I wanted to be everything and above, doctor, lawyer, you name it. It wasn't one particular thing like an athlete or a football player. It was just pretty much anything that was kind of like physical, challenging, but at the same time, seemed like you're having fun too.
And you went to Central High School?
Went to Central High School, yes.
All right, this next question is kind of long, so bear with me. You talk about foster care system. You were in foster care system.
Yes, sir.
We've had a program director of Cornerstones in Care not too long ago. Your website, you allude to a system that's out of control. I think about movies. I just saw The Inevitable Defeat of Mr. and Pete with Jennifer Hudson and Jeffrey Wright. I don't know if you've had the chance to see that.
Not yet.
Prison Song with Q-Tip and Mary J. Blige or Lean on Me, where the teacher just can't teach. Or books written by Sapphire, The Kid or Sister Soldier, The Coldest Winter Ever, or her latest about Portia Santiga. The media devices do little to gloss over the harsh realities. These particular media devices that paint a picture that is one that is very dark and bleak. Mr. Flowers, do you have any true life stories like that? Former NBA player, social activist Alonzo Mourning, who put himself into foster care and went on to be this really great player at Georgetown. What was your foster care experience like here in Missouri?
Well, first of all, I think I just want to just say that the foster care system is a great service that is very much needed and has had a lot of success, as you just mentioned with Alonzo Mourning and others. But my experience wasn't a positive one. I was placed in foster care at the age of 7 when my grandmother was diagnosed with, I think it was throat cancer at the time, and I was removed from my home. And so I went through like 3 different foster homes over the 3 years from 7 to 10. And pretty much I was abused physically, mentally, and emotionally. And it seemed like they was looking for more so what was wrong with me instead of what was right. Because one thing that my family gave me, I was the first grandchild of 12 uncles and aunts. And, you know, when you're that first grandchild, you're kind of like that 13th younger brother. And they gave me a high self-esteem. I mean, they let me know at an earlier age that there was no one better than me. You know, I wasn't no better than anybody else, but there was no one better than me. So when I went into the system, I had that type of attitude, that type of pride. And it seemed like it was something that wasn't recognized, you know. And so, again, I can remember experiences being punished where I was placed in a basement, you know, locked up in a basement overnight. And we're not talking about a basement with finished basement with nice carpet and finished walls. We're talking about concrete, cold, cobwebs. And so, and then you had your little pecking order coming in. You know, the kids that's been there a little longer got certain privileges more so than the kids that, you know, just was introduced to the foster home instead of based on needs of the kids. So my experience wasn't the greatest, even though I believe in the foster care system and think it's needed.
Thank you for relaying that to us. We're not going to sugarcoat or gloss over it. Your experience made you who you are today, Mr. Flowers. Did it hurt not having your family in your corner when you were older and you maybe wanted to look out and see them?
Well, you know,
at events and different.
Yes, you know, when you go through your challenges in life, sometimes you don't know what's wrong because everything around you is kind of broken. You become accustomed to it. And I didn't know that family support was a part of the process until you are a part of the events, whether you at a basketball game or when I was in a juvenile facility and you got family day and then you realize your family don't show up. But my family I knew had a lot of love for me, even though they didn't have the resources to support me. And I think sometimes we get love and support, think that they go hand in hand. And sometimes they don't.
Absolutely.
But I never questioned my family's love for me. Even though through this process, the visits were slim to none. But sometimes they just didn't have the resources. I can remember when I was locked up in a residential treatment facility, it was on 150th and Warnell. And at that time, when you live in North Kansas City, we didn't have reliable transportation that can get anyone there to see me, nor sometimes did you have the gas money, where they can afford to come see me. So sometimes it's just your financial situations that prevent people from coming to see you more so than their desire.
Yes, and certainly we commend parents in all different type of situations who do their best to provide for their son and daughter. Mm-hmm. But I know now that you have a talented group of children who look up to you and see their older brother, see an older father figure. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what planted the seeds for Higher Impact?
Well, what planted the seed for Higher Impact, it was really my last semester at University of Missouri Columbia. At that time, I was just like most individuals in life. I just wanted to get a good job to take care of me and my family, And at that time, when I say me and my family, I meant like me and my wife and my future family. And that was it. But my senior year, I was required to write a paper, my senior paper, and I decided to do it on the juvenile justice system. And the reason why I did it for selfish reasons, I thought it would be an easy A because I didn't live this experience, in which I did get an A out of the class. But one of the requirements were to do 8 site visits. And I chose 3 facilities that I was incarcerated in, again, to make it easier for me.
This is undergrad?
This is undergrad, yes. And little did I know that I had an encounter with 3 young men that basically changed my life and put me on a course of starting Higher Impact. One young man, I was in detention at the family court, making a few visits, and we just really bonded. It was a 14-year-old. He was a very charismatic kid, and every time I would come there, we have a good time just talking about sports and all those type of things. And then finally, I asked him, what are you in here for? And he told me murder, and it really blew me away that here I am bonding with a kid that had committed murder. Because normally, when you think of a murderer, you think of this person that look a certain way and act a certain way. And I finally asked him, like, what did you do? And he explained this situation that him and a few of his friends went joyriding in one of their parents' car, and they had permission to do it. But one of the friends was like, hey, can you follow this guy that's in the truck? And they did. They thought he knew the guy. But come to find out, the guy jumped out, tried to take the guy's truck, and in the process, he ended up killing them, and they were all charged with felony murder. And I said to myself, that could have been me. Mm-hmm. Because, a lot of times you go places with your friends, you don't know exactly what they plan on doing.
Absolutely.
So I was like, wow, this kid's 14, and now he's in this situation. The other kid was a kid that was also in detention. He was like 6'7", 350 pounds, had tons of facial hair. I thought this kid was a staff member. He was so big. Mm-hmm. And one of the teachers there asked me, Mr. Flowers, can you teach him how to tell time? And in my mind, I'm like, 17? Don't know how to tell time? And I understand being behind in some math and reading, some of us are in that situation. But not knowing how to tell time
at 17. Not knowing how to tell time is crucial.
Yeah. And so I'm saying to myself, like, dang, this kid, what's his issue? But the problem was, at the time, in 10 minutes, he was able to learn how to tell time. This kid was sharp. I mean, it wasn't a struggle. And then I realized it wasn't that he was dumb. The fact was he just wasn't taught. And then I asked him his story, and he told me that basically all his life he's been taught. At the age of 12, he was over 6 foot. And here he is, a 12-year-old playing with other 12-year-olds. Everybody else thought he was like 18.
Absolutely.
And they're like, why is this grown man playing with these little kids? And because he acted like a 12-year-old because he was 12 and they thought he was 18, most people thought he was mildly retarded because he's talking, and like he's a kid. And then second, so that bothered me. And then a lot of parents didn't want him playing with their children because they thought he can harm them.
Andre the Giant.
Exactly. So, and so he was explaining that to me. And then lastly, he was saying that basically from 8th grade through 12th grade, he was socially promoted. They basically made a deal with him and said, as long as you don't get into any physical altercation and keep your anger in check, we'll make sure you graduate. And so it wasn't that he couldn't learn. he wasn't taught. And then now I'm starting to get angry. How many kids are in his situation? And then finally, I went to McCune School for Boys, another place I was incarcerated as a kid, and did some volunteer work there. And then one of the kids, he came to me directly. Most kids kind of like, either they're intimidated by the wheelchair or just the fact that you're an adult, they kind of hesitate to approach you. But this kid came to me, he looked at me directly, he walked around my chair, and he said, "You're here for two reasons, to write a paper or to justify your lifestyle so you can feel good about yourself." And I thought that was pretty good. And I said, well, I feel good about myself. I'm here to write a paper. And then he said, "Before you ask me some questions, I would like to ask you some questions." And I thought that was fair, because most adults, we want to jump into their personal lives, want to know, why did you make the decisions you made? Tell me about your family or your community, your friends, but they don't know anything about us. So I told him my story, and he shared his story. And then I thought it was interesting. At the end of the day, I went to the staff and I said, "You know what? I didn't know Johnny went through X, Y, and Z." And the staff response was, "We didn't either." And I'm like, he must have lied to me. Because I remember when I was young, like when adults would come to me and ask me about my life, I'd just tell them, make up something, because you never tell your family secrets. And so I went back to the kid and said, "I don't have the power to set you free or to lock you up. Why did you didn't have to lie to me. I'm gonna be gone in a week and I probably never see you again." And his response was, "Mr. Flowers, I didn't lie to you, I've been lying to them." And I wanted to know.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yes, and I wanted to know why me, because you don't even know me. And when I told him my story, I told him I was incarcerated in the West Wing in Cell C, and that happened to be the cell he was in. So he knew that I was telling him the truth, and so that's why he felt necessary to tell me the truth. And his story was, he grew up no trouble with the law. No, he loved school and actually excelled in school all up until the 8th grade. And in the 8th grade, he found out that his mother was a high-end prostitute. And that just disrupted his whole lifestyle. And he would go to school a little later just to avoid some of her activities at night. Teachers would ask, like, "Well, why are you late?" What is he gonna say? Because like I said earlier, there's two ways a kid can get locked up. Something that they do or something that your family's doing. So he carried this burden from 8th grade all the way through his senior year of just, dealing with this, and couldn't share it with anyone. And at that point, I said, how many of the kids we're working with are misunderstood, misdiagnosed, and not accurately being helped?
Exactly.
And so at that point, I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, with no consultation with my pastor or any community leader. I said, this is what I want to do, is represent those kids. And that's when I went back to school. That's when I decided to go to law school.
And how long has Higher Impact been making a difference in Kansas City today?
Yeah, Higher Impact was founded my first year of law school in '93, but it was launched full time in 2003.
So 11 years.
Yeah, basically 10 years. Yes.
10, 11 years.
Yeah.
And I understand there's a community dinner coming up. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Yes. Higher Impact, again, is celebrating 10 years of service to the youth in Kansas City. And every year we do a fundraiser, which is our Inspired Impact Community Luncheon. But this year we decided to do something a little bit different. It's going to be our Inspired Impact Community Dinner to celebrate our 10 years of service to the youth of Kansas City and beyond.
Now, you mentioned honesty and transparency. How does someone say, I'm scared to go, I'm from the suburbs and I'm scared to go in my church group and mentor some youth who I see as being high risk. They're not from my area, they inner city youth, but I feel like, I have a job to do. What could I do personally to get that youth to open up to me?
Well, first of all, we're finding that it's not just suburban, it's a lot of urban and rural adults that are intimidated by these kids. And more so, they're intimidated by the unknown. Because, if you think about back in the day, we had white flight. Everybody, left the urban core and it was just minorities. But at that time, because of segregation, you had African-American pastors, teachers, prostitute and pimp. So you had the good and the bad and the ugly. But if you look at over the past 10 to 15 years, you've had black flight. So anybody that's successful are leaving the urban cores to live in Raytown, Blue Springs, the Summit, and for good reasons, and to better the lives of their children and their families. But now you're leaving everything that's negative in the urban core. So all these kids are seeing is, plight, poverty. They're not seeing any success. And one of the challenges we have is not only that you have, your Caucasian suburbans that may potentially be intimidated because they may not live that experience, but you have a lot of African Americans that are also being removed from that experience to where they're losing potentially the skill set to interact with these kids. But I always tell anybody, it's the passion. If you have the passion to work with these kids, and you're willing to be genuine and transparent, you can build a relationship and have an impact. Just be who you are. They don't need no one to come to the urban core and try to be cool. They don't need anybody that's trying to be like them. They just want people to be genuine, and you'll have an impact.
Can you tell our viewers how they can volunteer or get more information about Higher Impact? I know there is highrimpact.org.
Yes. If you want to learn more about Higher Impact, you can go to our website, highrimpact.org, or you can follow us on Facebook, which is Higher Impact, and that's Higher Impact, HIGHERM-PAC. But we also are on Instagram, and that's Higher Impact, no spacing, with the underscore at the end. And then lastly, you can follow us on Twitter, and that's Making Impact, no space.
I should mention we are in the same building. You guys
Yes.
are at the third floor in a lovely office. Do you have any final words for our viewers here? I know we could sit here and just talk until afternoon news comes on, but
Right.
we fortunately have to go pay some
Exactly.
bills.
At the end of the day, I just want everybody to understand that the kids we work with are kids that were made in America. These kids are kids that we brought into the world, kids that we basically told them that we would take care of them. And I truly believe all the resources that we need to reach these kids are here in Kansas City. I would just suggest that think about anything that you're passionate about, or your profession, or you enjoy doing, and offer those talents to any organization that's working with kids, that's trying to make an impact in their lives. And keep in mind that no one individual or one organization is going to solve the problem. It's going to take a community.
It's going to take a community effort. We definitely see your passion here, Doctor. Making a difference in the life of just one child, you're doing a lot. Thank you for coming to the show today. What's up, Kansas City? I'm your host, Glenn Bryan Frizzell. Check out more video online at www.whatsupkansascity.net. And remember, the sky's the limit. Aim high. If you shoot for the moon and you miss, at the very least, you would have landed among the stars. Take care until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
CMG wants you to always remember, the victory we call success goes to the best prepared. When you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Thanks. CMG wants you to always remember, the victory we call success goes to the best prepared. When you invest in your community,